communication. My name is John Capo. I'm a professor of communication and media studies here at the college. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about one of our projects that we do in the department. And we have two amazing students here to talk to you about it. So I can introduce Brendan Clark and Lane Yoder. So these are both senior communication and media studies majors, and you can sit, it's okay. Students, they're both seniors. Lane doesn't just study communication and media studies, but he has minors in film and video arts and graphic design, and is a member of the men's basketball team. And Brendan, in addition to being a major, is a member of the football team and the FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So we were going to try to keep this as loose as possible, maybe even more of a dialogue than a strict one-way presentation, where we thought we would talk a little bit about the concept of forecasting trends, which is very important to our field, and get into some detail about a project that these students completed last spring involving some research on some contemporary issues. So with that, I believe we have just a little bit of information about the students, and here they are. And one of the nice things about this presentation was that it was entirely sort of structured and strategized by the students themselves. So the slides, the content, what we'll be talking about, it was very nice to see them work through this. So some of the stuff they wanted to talk about is a little bit about our trend publication that we put out each year, and then more broadly, within the field of professional communication, what it means to actually predict or forecast a trend. Then we'd like to talk on a more granular level about the class itself and how these students and their classmates predict trends. We wanted to show you some of the articles, not just to boast about ourselves, but also to talk a little bit about the graphic design aspect that goes into the project. And then we've got a little bit of an interactive activity to involve you in. Don't get scared, it's very simple, very simple. So, hi Dean Boyd, welcome. All right, so we're gonna kick this off with a little bit of discussion. I've been told that I need to pass this around to the student that is speaking. So bear with me as we do that. Lane, I guess we'll get started. Can you just explain to the audience what exactly the Trends publication is?
Trends is a class that we are able to take where we basically make and publish a magazine of trends that we think are going to happen in the upcoming year, things that we think are going to be popular, things that are basically going to be trending. So, you know, that kind of starts with just predicting stuff, what we think, doing research on what's popular now, what's going on now, and kind of, looking to see how those trends are going to lay out. So I compare it to something like, predicting a bet or predicting on political polls, or it's just everyday life stuff. Yeah.
And do you want to talk a little bit, Brendan, maybe about the value, like why we study the prediction of trends, like what value that has in the actual business world or communications world?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely beneficial. I actually wrote an article that we'll look at later where it talks about the stock market and how Wall Street was saying one thing and my thoughts led to another thing using evidence that were at the hands of us as normal college students just taking a class. So it is advantageous. You can help your business, your company, whatever you might be doing at the time, if you can kind of see into the future just by taking estimated guesses. And if a bunch of college students can do it, the hope is that well-trained people can do it as well. So,
yeah. And Brendan, in terms of the class itself, so just to give you some context, I guess I'm supposed to walk over to this thing. This is new to us, this technology, but we're learning. If you're not familiar or haven't seen the actual report, it's somewhere between a 60 and 70 page printed magazine that gets distributed on campus, and the class itself runs each spring generally, this year being our 5th edition already. So the concept was developed by that class in 2021 to frame this around the idea of predicting trends. And the college very generously allows us to run it in a computer lab so that the students are constantly generating ideas and writing. And then the actual physical printing of the report, which comes at considerable cost, gives it a little bit of a special, it's not just another website, it's not just another blog, and there's a permanence to it, right? Once you've printed something, you are a published author, and it is not a social media post or a blog where you can update it. It exists in a fixed space. So, Brendan, do you want to talk a little bit about the day-to-day of the class, sort of how it runs and how we get from 0 ideas to a 65-page magazine?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Something so complicated comes from a very simple process, and that's just Professor Capo really emphasized just thinking and staying on your feet. Anything can happen. We had articles that were being written at the time, and then something would happen, and you kind of have to change it up. Like I said, just staying on your toes, being able to adapt and adjust to things that are going on. Big on like control the controllables. Like in the real world, you can't control anything. So what makes you think you're going to be able to control something that is happening in the real world? It's awesome. It was really fun, and this class as a whole develops a skill set for you that I definitely didn't have before I took it.
And what were some of those skills, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I did not like the fact that I couldn't control what my articles were being. Like, I could pick my topics, but I couldn't control what was happening around those topics. So I would say that was definitely the biggest skill I gained. And then working with other people. There's articles that we have one cited in here, actually 2, where a student and another student had to put their thoughts together and connect thoughts. And even though I may not have agreed and someone else may have not agreed with my thoughts, you had to work together, and it was just a very different way of teamwork that I've never been exposed to, even through athletics or other school group projects.
So why don't we bring up one of the articles, the music article, which the students wanted to show you because there are 2 things in this article that are actually trending right now, pretty much to the day. So just to set it up, Lane, before you talk about it, this was an article written by 2 students, Jaden and Justin, about music trends. And some of the things that they predicted was sort of the ascension of Bad Bunny, who, if you're not familiar, is one of, if not the top streamed artists in the world right now, Spanish language singer, who was just announced as the halftime performer at the upcoming Super Bowl. So there was an interesting angle here about a prediction of a rise, and surely with the Super Bowl being the most high-profile music event of the year, probably surpassing the Grammys at this point, that was sort of interesting. And then we had, Lane, and you can talk on this, a very different case with an artist named David, a one-named artist, David, who was predicted by the authors to become, quote, despite amassing 25 million monthly listeners on Spotify, yet to become a household name. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how David has sort of become a household name.
Yeah. So David was rising to fame a little bit, was definitely not a household name with like a year ago. But literally within the past, I think, month and a half, there was some things that came out about him. There was a body that was found in the back of his car. And so naturally that spiked his music because people were looking for lyrics to support evidence that would either say that he did do it or didn't do it. So the car was found it was going to get impounded, and there was a smell that was coming from the car. So people noticed the smell, searched the car, found the body, and they're tracing it back to a missing person that was seen around this David artist. So his music has been doing well, but not for the right reasons at all. Unlike Bad Bunny, which his rise to fame is coming more from, well, the Super Bowl, obviously. And then also he's been doing little acting gigs now and then. He was in Happy Gilmore 2, had a funny role in that. But yeah, the David case is literally, we could not have predicted that whatsoever. But we did get it right in the sense that, yes, he's a household name. So yeah, I found that very interesting, how that laid out, how that all went down. Yeah.
And I would add on to that, if it wasn't clear, that it was a deceased body. That is the crux of the case, of a 15-year-old girl, and so it's unfolding as we speak. And then the one question that I get asked a lot over the 4 years we've done this is, has anything come true or not come true? And is there a way to sort of be retrospective about that? And this is one of the first examples going into year 5 where we have enough data to start looking back and saying, okay, here's where it seems like our students are on to something, and then maybe some other areas where we were a little too bold in our predictions. Each year we do a person of the year who we predict is going to be the person with the most impact in the year coming up. And it's decided by class discussion and a anonymous class vote. This way students can select someone even if they're controversial. It is not meant to be the best person of the year necessarily, but the most impactful. It's modeled after the Time Person of the Year, where it's not always the best person. And so this year, it was a unanimous decision of the 15 students, the 15 authors, that Elon Musk would be the person of the year. And there was a lot of evidence for that at the time, because he had just been appointed to the government position in Doge, and had recently purchased Twitter and stuff. So we had a lot of gut instinct. And then a couple months after the magazine was printed, he was fired, or no longer working for the federal government, and has largely faded, at least from the day-to-day profile in the news. So it was very funny. I actually got a text from the student who wrote that article for us, Will, saying, sorry. And I said, no, you got to go on the data that you have when we're doing it. And at the time, that sure looked like it would be quite impactful. Brendan, I guess we could turn to the next article, which speaks to the sports betting angle, which I know that you had told me is having some interesting developments this week, as close as this week.
Yeah, so we have an article up here, and it talks more about collaborations with colleges, trying to get promotional discounts, basically get people onto their sports book. Before apps and stuff got mobilized, there were like bookies you could make bets with. Now essentially there's online casinos, and these were talking about collaborations on college campuses. We're both NCAA athletes and not allowed to bet, and it's very interesting that the NCAA has actually this October and the next coming week is going to be voting on allowing college students to bet on professional sports, not collegiate sports. So when Lane and I were looking back at the articles we wanted to show to you guys, we were trying to look for trends that, hey, like we may be hitting, have already hit, or have a potential to hit. And we thought it was very interesting that there is a vote this October, it just turned October, to allow sports betting. So we wanted to credit Lenny and Nick for almost maybe being spot on with something that I would have never guessed was allowed just 5 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And Brendan, since a lot of these topics stem from the students' interests, right? We've seen music, we've seen sports, that might be seen as predictable, right, for the audience at a college campus. Of course, they're going to write about what they're watching and playing and listening to. But can you talk a little bit about the research that goes into these articles, even if they're in your wheelhouse, right? Even if you know about betting or Bad Bunny, how do we get it to a 400 or 500 word piece, or in some cases 800 word piece, that's not just your opinion, but actually something that could be backed up by reality?
Yeah, so for starters, it's way harder than it sounds. You can't just go to Google and ask, has this happened? Because you can't predict the future. It's kind of like when I was a little kid, I was telling Professor Capo, I would always ask my father why I couldn't fast forward to watch like the Phillies game or the Eagles game. And you can't do it. It hasn't happened yet. So you can't just go to Google. You have to use evidence and past trends. For one article, I looked at things that were a very similar topic and what had happened with a different company to gather data that was in a very similar field. You can't just look up. It's very hard. You have to go with your gut. You have to go with the data that's in front of you and try to make connections and draw predictions, because that's all you can do. If you could predict the future, you probably would be a very successful human.
Lane, did you want to, on that same token, talk a little bit about Ziggy, the podcaster? I know we didn't sort of set that up as something we would talk about, but in terms of first-person primary research for your podcast article,
Yeah.
what was that like?
So the article's not up here, but I had done an article on a guy named Zerky that does self-help podcasts. He basically goes into nature and films himself and gives people advice, talks about his life, gives stories. I first saw him on social media, started following him on Spotify, Apple Music, listening to his podcasts. And so I shot him a text, DM'd him on Instagram, and was basically just like, hey, I'm writing this article. I'd love to get some of your feedback from what you've done with podcasting, and getting that like first word, like that first person, like, you know, you're in it, you're talking to him, you're getting direct feedback. That felt very good. I felt very strong. Like I felt very comfortable with the article after being able to get that information out of him. And yeah, I think that overall that was probably the best research or thing that I could have done to help my article on podcasting and why it's becoming such a big thing.
Yeah, and that's a good component of the class, having to go out and interview an expert for at least one of the articles. And the students have come up with some amazing things. I've helped a little bit, but interestingly, I haven't had to help all that much. We've been able to connect with Pennsylvania state senators, CEOs of public relations companies, local musicians, and most notably, a student was writing about an anniversary and the enduring legacy of the Golden Girls as a TV show. And she said to me, well, who am I going to get as an expert to talk about this? And I said, I don't know, why don't you reach out with someone from the Golden Girls? Do some Googling. Who created it? Who wrote it? She did. And the very first edition of the magazine has commentary and quotes from the creator of the Golden Girls. I think her name might be Diane English. I could be getting that wrong. But it was actually fantastic that she did that. And another example was a student who had the very niche dream job of doing public relations for a faith-based organization in Texas. That was her dream job. So she said, how can I leverage this magazine to be something I can take on a job interview? And I said, well, I think you need to start Googling faith-based PR agencies in Texas. And you know, she found the CEO of one. He hired her. Within a year after graduation, she emailed me. I don't even know if I told, this was recent. She emailed me and said, remember that guy that gave me a couple of sentences for my article? I said, yeah. She said, I work for him now. And I just thought that was pretty incredible. And to be that specific was also amazing. The less desirable topics, the students would like to talk to you about nicotine. This was a very much requested article written by a student named Bernie, who coincidentally has just returned to Lycoming as an assistant basketball coach, so shout out to Bernie. But he wrote an article about these products called Zins, and the students feel that this is top of mind for the audience and would like to talk about it.
Yeah, so Zins came out within the past probably 5-10 years. And have kind of sparked up a little bit of controversy of whether they are healthy and whether they are, good to consume. There's been a lot of studies that show that they are way more healthy than smoking. They eliminate all of tobacco, so basically, they're just healthier than cigarettes. So it was intended for people to basically stop smoking cigarettes, cigars, those kinds of things. And has kind of sparked up some controversy of whether it's good because now younger teens or kids or whatever are starting to, use these products. And although it may be good for someone that's trying to stop smoking, it's not necessarily good for someone that's still in a growth state. So this article talks about a lot of the reasons specifically on, why they're good and why they are better for you than smoking and why people should use them. But I guess, it's a controversial topic in my opinion, and I think that it kind of opens the floor for some discussion as far, yeah.
Yeah, it speaks to the controversial, I guess you could say, nature of some of the topics when you're trying to predict what's going to be resonating with consumers or from the political sphere. We have some tough conversations in the class, and sometimes we have to academically duke it out about how far do we want to go and what's the line between informing people via the magazine versus endorsing, right? And how close do we want to get to that? To that end, let's turn to the economics article, Brendan. We had a numbers-related article that talked about the upcoming year from the perspective of the stock market and some cost of living items. You found some interesting data about that as of this morning.
Yeah, so this was the partner-related article that I was referring to earlier. Me and one of my former teammates, Jake Welch, wrote this article called 2026 by the Numbers. And actually, Professor Capo is the one who found that angle of the title, because I was really passionate about writing about SoFi, a stock to watch in 2026, and why I thought it would do good towards the end of this year. And Jake really wanted to write about gas prices, eggs, and beef. And me and Jake were kind of just like bamboozled. We didn't know how we were going to get these two articles to work, and Professor Capo did a really good job. We talked about, in the part of the article that I wrote, I was ranting about how SoFi is just opening up level 1 trading options away from being a stock that could really go up. And at the time, it was a $9.57 stock. And I said, if they just open this level 1 trading platform, they're gonna explode. Yesterday, they opened a level 1 trading platform where they're now exchanging options, and it's a very good introduction to their business model. And since this article's been written, Wall Street had multiple sell ratings on it and very few hold ratings on it. The target price was $6. My article said that by the end of 2026, it could be $75. Today, the stock's, since I wrote the article, it's up 138%, and it's $25.42, and its price target by the end of this year is $31. So we're well on pace, actually exceeding my own expectations, to hit $75 next year. In terms of what Jake wrote about, he wrote all about how gas is expected to go down. Hopefully eggs could go down, because he wrote this in January when eggs were like almost $10 a dozen. Since he wrote this article, gas has gone up 5 cents on U.S. average. Beef has gone down. Eggs have gone down $4, and beef has gone down $1.50 per pound. So we thought it was very interesting. Gas, Jake it's gone up a little bit. It hasn't really moved, but he hit eggs right on the head, and beef is slowly going down. So we thought it was very interesting. This is just another instance where we thought it was cool that the trends we predicted are slowly but surely becoming true.
Sorry. This next, as we start to get into the not closing, but further towards the end of this presentation, these students were very, as we were planning the content for this, they very much wanted to highlight someone who does not get much of a shout out, but is the way that the magazine goes from a Microsoft Word document on our screens to the 70-page magazine in people's hands. And that has to do with the graphic designer. So essentially, the students have to work very hard and fast in this class to have all of the content finished before spring break. So that only gives students, if you figure the first week is simply brainstorming ideas, you're only looking at 7 weeks or so of explicit writing time, because then the graphic designer needs time to design the magazine and then come back to us with all the changes we need to make, because there's either not enough space, or he might say something like, well, if you want a big photo of Bad Bunny and your article to look great, you need to cut 200 words. So it's a really interesting, almost like a newsroom environment that's going on. But we in the major are by and large not designers. Every now and then we have somebody with sort of a graphic design minor or background that has an eye for that. But what we've done sometimes in the past is partner with the art department to offer an internship opportunity for one of their students to design the magazine. Other times we have offered the job as student employment to a qualified student. So the students here, Brendan and Lane, really wanted us to show you just a small sample of some of her designs. A student named Jocelyn Riga, who has since graduated as of last year. And they're presented in a collage style because we wanted to get them on one slide. But Brendan, do you want to talk very briefly about how we worked with Jocelyn and how it was sort of limited interaction, but actually quite substantial in its result?
Yeah, so the class was very laid back, but you knew when Jocelyn was in the room, you had to be very serious because this was her job too. I think the hardest part was trying to tell someone that you didn't like the look of your article, even though they've put their own hard work into it. And I had to do that for one of mine. I wrote an article about, will streaming kill cable? And I just didn't like the way it looked. And she was just totally understanding. She was very strict, but she was understanding, but held her ground too. And if she had to, she'd boss you around. She told me I had to cut a couple hundreds of words out of my one article. And I cooperated because at the end of the day, she has the final say, because if she can't fit your article, she can't fit your article. So it's, once again, that weird teamwork bonding kind of deal where she was amazing and someone I'd work with again.
Lane, do you want to speak to that aspect of the class as well, maybe from the perspective of the graphic design minor?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think people quite understand how difficult this kind of stuff is, especially under such a time crunch when we have to give her the articles and then she only has a few weeks to design everything and get the communication out to us saying, hey, you need to cut words here, or this doesn't look right, or, those things. So, it's a huge credit to her, and she was also kind of a little bit last minute replacement for someone that, couldn't end up doing it. So the fact that she was able to step up and be that pretty much put our words to life, which is not something that a lot of people can say that they do. So it was definitely a pleasure working with her, for sure.
So should we get to the survey? Yeah. So the students wanted to start to wrap things up with an idea that I thought was pretty cool, which is they created for you, or I guess we collaboratively created, you'll take care of it, a very short survey or questionnaire, just sort of a one question thing, where the students are going to ask you, and they'll give you a pencil and the paper, to jot down something that you think will be trending a year from now. And we've listed some industries on there to jog your mind. So it could be from business, athletics, entertainment, politics, some company, person, or story you think will be trending in that industry 1 year from now. And this kind of mimics how the class starts when we convene in the spring. Just give you a second or so to think about that. think if you only have one or two things down, that's fine. We were just going to use this as a little bit of a illustration of sort of how the conversations start in our class. So I can take those if you have anything written down, or even if you don't.
Thank you. Thank you. Need more time. There you go. It's fine. Thank you. He'll be around for the pencils. Professor Capo is going to look at them, and he's going to see if we have any common topics. Because this is very much how the class starts. We wrote our ideas on a whiteboard. Is how it all starts.
Great.
Laying it. That's right there. Here's some of those.
I just want to say, I'm a gift officer, so I'm out meeting with alumni, raising money.
Mhm.
And I love taking your magazine with me to give to them if they haven't seen it before, because it's a tangible thing that people love. They're like, this is cool. Like, this is what our students are doing.
It's cool because thank you for that.
Absolutely.
It's really cool because it's the first time that, besides like putting myself on an athletic field, like it's the first product I've ever been able to be like, I played a part in that.
And
So
what you guys are doing is so useful in the business world.
yeah,
I mean, like, that's what it's all about, really. So
thank you.
you'll
It
have a
means
head
a lot.
start.
Here's that. Thank you.
All right, so let's start here. So we wanted to give you, thank you, a little bit of a taste of. So day one of the class involves the students simply listing out dozens and dozens of topics at the top of their mind that could be potential articles. And then they go home that day and sort of narrow them down, refine them a bit. And by the Friday of the first week of class, they have written or come close to actually finishing their first article. It's a real push, and it gives them the incentive to keep writing, keep thinking. But I'll start with this one. So as all things must do, we must start with Taylor Swift. It is contractually obligated. And so Taylor Swift did drop an album at midnight last night. I don't know if you're aware. But I will not scare you by asking you to talk maybe about Taylor Swift in detail, but I would like to. I've got 2 sisters. You've got 2 sisters, so you could sing a few numbers, Brendan. No, I think my jumping point question for that would be about going back to the unpredictability of things, right? So an artist drops an album at midnight, and nobody in the world really knows what the reaction to that is going to be. How did that feel as an author when your magazine was handed out to your peers and parents and professors, not knowing what the reaction would be?
Definitely nerve-wracking. I mean, you have this tangible item that you're giving to your family and people you know, and they're flipping through it, reading your articles. I remember when my mom was reading my article, I was like, I really hope she thinks it's good writing, because in my mind, she knows how to write well, and she's intelligent. So just being able to give people those, your work, and just have them judge you pretty much right in front of your face is pretty nerve-wracking. So yeah, I mean, definitely.
I was kind of on the opposite end. I was just kind of proud to be part of something that was put out in the world. Like I was saying earlier, besides being in athletics and putting my own play, I've never been a part of something tangible. I was very proud that I could say I was part of the reason this happened. And then, naturally, people have bias towards certain topics. So I figured if I wrote articles about things I was passionate about and knew about, people who wanted to read about that would read it. So I wasn't really nervous. I was more so just really proud and actually thankful for this opportunity, because not only is it a great experience, it's a very resume-worthy thing. You can say you're a published, it's amazing. So I was very thankful for the whole opportunity, and proud would be what I would say.
That's cool. Yeah. Hold on to that, Brendan. So somebody wrote down for a business that might be trending. I think we would agree, ChatGPT, right? So it seems like a good topic in a school setting, and in fact, the person framed it as ChatGPT and its place in education. What do you think? We haven't done scheduling yet, so I don't know if either of you will be taking and doing this again in the spring. But for the students who are, do you predict that there will be an article about ChatGPT? And if so, what might be its implications on higher education for college students?
I think you first off have to start with the very harsh topics with ChatGPT and how it could be plagiarism. It cannot be your work if you don't use it the right way. How it could cheat education. But I think you could also talk about the amazing things it could bring to higher ed, and that's assistance. I'm going to be completely transparent. I'll type my own paper, and I'll be like, hey, chat, read this, grammatically correct it. Or is there anything I'm missing? But then ChatGPT for stuff like trends really stinks because it's only updated up to the last like 2 years, and it definitely can't predict the future. So when you go to ChatGPT about something like trends, it kind of just spits like very bland, non-human like thoughts at you, and it's very boring. So I think if there was an article in Trends about ChatGPT, it would be about the pros and cons is kind of the angle I would try to attack.
I love that you're saying, hey chat,
Yeah.
like you're having a real conversation.
You got to respect the robots. They'll know that I was nice to them if something ever goes south. So.
Lane, so for athletics, somebody commented that, and I think we'll all agree, that a big story that'll be trending is the World Cup. And I'll bring this up because this actually was our brand of the year. So in addition to a person of the year, the class gets to select the brand that they feel will have the most impact on the next year. And that does match what the students selected. If we could talk maybe not necessarily about the World Cup in general, but it speaks to the collaborative nature of the class. Having to not just collaborate, but sometimes, what is the word? Relent, to somebody else's idea. I think we were split on a big stock, maybe NVIDIA, or what would be the brand of the year, and it was almost a 50-50-ish vote.
No, it was me versus the class.
Eventually, at first, you had more people on your side, and then it was Brendan against the class for the World Cup. But just briefly on the collaborative nature of the class, and was that ever difficult? We know why it's enriching, but...
Yeah, no, that definitely difficult. There's so many different opinions, and especially when you get some people in your class that they want to voice their opinion and they're all in on their ideas, and you get another person that's the exact same way but has a different opinion or a different view. We definitely had classes where there was most of the class was just us discussing what we want to do and what we want to talk about, and there just being different opinions and things being thrown out. I think that class specifically, the one that we took last year, was the people in that class were very opinionated, and we're looking to get good work out of what we were talking about. So the collaboration end of all of that, deciding whether to do NVIDIA or a World Cup, I think that was more than a one-day decision. That definitely took definitely took a different couple classes. So yeah, I think that does definitely shape the way that the magazine is made as well, because when we have those kinds of conversations, it only gets us all to think more critically and think what could this look like, and yeah.
I guess we can sort of wrap this up with maybe sort of concluding thoughts. There are a lot of great answers here, and I am very happy with the person who put Tom Sillo as a trending topic for athletics, which, if you're not familiar, is one of our amazing students. But if we want to just wrap up, if the audience has some questions, the students were eager to answer them. I don't know if anyone does have any questions about either the magazine itself or how the course plays out, or reactions they may have received to their articles. If you don't have any questions, we'll certainly wrap up. We know it's getting late on a Friday. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you all look at some of the other models of this, like the Economist magazine year ahead issue, or I mean, a lot of media sources around the new year do this. Do you like look at and evaluate them, or as part of the club?
Well, I would start off by saying that this stolen is the wrong word, but I loaned this idea from a report that USC does. The University of Southern California Communications School does something called the Relevance Report. And what they do is it's survey based, so it's not like this. They survey communities to figure out what is going to be relevant the next year, particularly regarding social media use. So which platforms will rise and fall. So I do introduce the class by explaining that this was inspired by a similar type of report. To the specific question though, did you do any of that research when it came to what other publications are predicting? I feel like with the in memoriam section, Brendan, you agree? It speaks to that. Do you want to tell them about that a little bit? And
Yeah, it was hard. I like writing about happy things, not about the passing of a very honorable individual. So I didn't know how to write about that. So I looked at multiple, not massive magazines, but obituaries, other articles that would reference like, why am I drawing a blank? Who was the president that passed away? Jimmy.
President Carter.
President Carter just passed away, so I looked at his obituary and how they talked about him and how they honored someone that was very relevant in society. So that's what I mainly took away. As for how you could write and predict trends, I thought that was kind of just the fun part about being in the class, my own individual thoughts. So I didn't want to be swayed or pulled in any direction that wasn't my own thoughts.
yeah, and when we speak of the in memoriam, we essentially do a 3 or 4 page section where each student writes about someone who died in the previous year who, as we put it, transcended their work to become a brand of their own. And they have latitude to select everyone from politicians to entertainers to business leaders and stuff. So that's what Brendan was
They don't
speaking
have to
of.
predict who's gonna die.
No. Thankfully, no.
An example of someone you did recently?
For the in memoriam?
Yeah.
So President Carter.
President Carter was 100% one of them. There was a famous athlete that we did.
O.J. Simpson.
O.J. Simpson was one.
The founder of the Girl Scouts of America.
Oh, Juliet Love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Helen wrote about that. Helen Hassett. Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones, yeah, that's what it is.
Motown legend.
Yeah.
Um,
They're all great.
But you would propose someone in Capo, or Professor Capo would be like, that's not significant enough. And it really just goes to, he really wants a good piece of work. So that's a tip of the cap to Professor Capo.
Brendan, can you pick this trend? Will Jane Goodall make next year's issue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Really good.
Are you faking that? Do you know who Jane Goodall is?
Nope.
That is, and we'll end on that laugh because that is one of the 1 second. Yeah, that is one of the more fun aspects of the class is the in memoriam because the people who are important in the orbit of the students are not always representative of the full spectrum of things. So pointing them to the obituary sections and really well-written obituaries like in the New York Times is actually some of the best reading they maybe do encounter throughout the semester. You had a question you wanted to... Yeah.
How do alumni get subscriptions to this magazine?
So subscription is a great word. I wish we were at that level, where it was that formalized. But no, the alumni department does get copies of the magazine and they're happy to mail you. They typically do a social media post informing about it, and I think we would love to get it.
But it didn't register.
It didn't register. Yeah. I think we'd love to get it to a point where there was a more formalized distribution process. What I'm hoping to do this year is at minimum get the former writers who have graduated, the former authors, I think should get copies going forward. But as a broad audience, the alumni office does have copies and would be happy to get you some. Yeah. And I can give you one today. I'll find you, yeah, if you'll be around. Yeah. So I think with that, we're going to close. I really appreciate, and I'm sure the students do, you all spending some time with us on a beautiful Friday where we'd probably all rather be outside. And thank you to Provost Kingery for giving up your quite valuable time, and Dr. Piper and Professor Burgandy from the department, and all of our other guests. And I will point out the one student I see here, Lucas Bauer, just joined the major 2 or 3 weeks ago as a first-year student, right? So pretty cool initiative to see you showing up for this when you probably had 5 other things to pick from this weekend. So nice job. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you very much. Nice job. Thank you. Good job. Nice job.